Hey IELTS people, like most of you know that IELTS speaking topics change after every 3 or 4 months. Beginning May, somewhere in the mid of May, this is going to happen and the introductory round topics, cue cards and follow-ups are going to start changing from 15th or 16th of May. And if you're planning to sit for IELTS speaking test before that, let's discuss the most important cue cards and the associated follow-ups which your examiner may ask you before the topics change somewhere in the mid of May. I am going to say the cue card and the associated follow-up. Make sure that you do practice them because this is not a random guesswork. These are real exam topics. The first cue card, that is, describe a famous athlete that you admire. Let's look at the follow-ups associated with this topic. What kind of exercises do people like to do in your country? What characteristics do you think an athlete should have? Do you think academic classes should replace physical education classes? And how can people know whether a child has a talent for sport? Describe a travel you were looking forward to but was delayed. Follow-up questions. How do people usually go traveling? In what ways can traffic conditions in a city can be improved? Do people still drive a car if public transportation is free of charge? And how can transportation in rural areas be developed? Describe a time you bought something from a street market. Questions are, why do some people like to buy luxuries? Do you think small markets will disappear in the future? What are the differences between shopping in a street market and shopping from big malls? Do you think the goods sold at discount stores are not of good quality? Describe a bad service you received in a restaurant or a shop. How do most people respond to bad services? Do you think most restaurants and shops provide better services than before? And why do some people remain silent when receiving a bad service? What would you do as a boss to prevent bad service? Describe a useful object in your home that you cannot live without. The follow-ups are, what equipments do you find difficult to use? Why do some people in the workplace dislike technology? Why do people buy a lot of household appliances? And the last one, what do people often do with electronic devices? Describe a good advertisement that you think is useful. How do you feel about online advertising? Are there any great online advertisements? Why does buying a new thing make people happy? And do people still watch useless advertisements nowadays? Moving on to the next topic, describe a person who has interesting ideas and opinions. How do inventors and philosophers come up with new ideas? Do you think children should have their own opinions? Why do children often have opinions similar to their parents? And do you think teachers influence students' opinions? Describe a job you do not want to do in future. Do you think artificial intelligence will take over many jobs? What would you say are the important factors to be considered when choosing a career? Another one, technology will make some people unemployed. How can this problem be solved? And the last one, is it common in your country for people to move to other cities because of work? Describe an outdoor activity you did in a new place recently. Do people go outdoors more or less now? What can people do outdoors besides exercising? When do people usually go outdoors to get close to the nature? What can people do to get close to nature? Describe an interesting person you never met but would like to know more about. Follow-ups are there any differences in the relationship between you and your friends and between you and other people? Do people feel lonely in crowded cities? Can clothing reveal a person's personality? And why do individuals from same family have different personalities? Moving on to the next cue card. The next one is describe a uniform that you wear. Let's look at the associated follow-ups. Why should students wear uniforms? On what occasion should people wear uniforms? What are the advantages and disadvantages of wearing a uniform? And should companies ask for employees' opinions about the design of uniforms? The next cue card is describe a time when people near you made a lot of noise. You can also call it describe a noisy place. The follow-up questions: what kind of places should be noise-free? Why can't people make noise in a church? Do you think young people or young children should be strictly forbidden from making any noise? The next cue card is describe a place in your country that you think is interesting. How can people access travel information? Do people have different personalities in different regions of your country? What causes the differences between different regions of your country? And is an excellent tourist destination also a good place to live? Describe a time when you waited a long time for a nice thing to happen. Follow-up questions are: on what occasions do people have to wait for a long time? What do people usually do while waiting? Why do most children have difficulties waiting for a long time? And do people queue consciously while waiting for the subway train? The last cue card is describe something you do regularly to help you work or study. The follow-ups are: do you think everyone's routine is different? Which jobs need a morning routine? Is a daily routine important? And what is the routine of people in your country? My name is Vikas. I represent Insignia Overseas. It's one of the leading IELTS and PT institutes in Haryana, and we make sure that we make IELTS simple for you. If you're planning to sit for your real IELTS test before the real topics change somewhere in the mid of May, practice these follow-ups and cue cards. Trust me, these are real exam questions. Thank you so much.